Welcome to book 2 of Julio Sagreras' method. In this method, it's starting to get a little bit more into intermediate territory, and the music's getting a little bit more dense on the page. And many of these pieces are really compositions that could be played in public. There's a lot of beautiful music in this volume, so I'm excited to dive in. This first one is a barca roll, sort of an Italian Venetian type boat song, but it's also marked melancholy. And so we want to make sure that it has a lilting and sort of tranquil vibe, and that we keep this 6/8 meter well intact. And so the first thing I want to do is just talk about the rhythm. Notice that Sagreras has a pickup on beat 6, and it's an accented one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Often he marks an accent on the 6th beat. And so we want to keep that in place. But one of the first technical challenges we have here is the idea that you have a free stroke in the bass and a rest stroke on the upper voice. And we want those to be as together as we can play them. And then when we play the chord on the downbeat, we want to silence those two notes. So we want to dampen them as well. So there's kind of a little, right at the beginning of the piece, there are a few little technical things. If we deal with them at the beginning, then we can sort of enjoy playing them or implementing them throughout the study. So we play. Now, I didn't like the sound of my chord. That one's a little bit better. What makes a chord more or less pleasant is often the balance of the tones relative to one another, which tones they are relative to the harmony, the angle of attack. There are many factors. But in a piece like this, and in general, let's try to push the strings into the guitar before we let them go. And we might, in this case, emphasize a little bit the note with the middle finger because it's the third of the harmony. And that will probably give us a less bright and brittle sound and a warmer kind of effect. Also, the color of the thumb note is going to be something you could explore. You might find that playing more with the flesh of the thumb gives this piece a more subdued character, whereas playing more with the nail gives it a more brilliant effect. At any rate, moving along, Sagreras marks the double slides, and those slides are for moving along the string. So we're not lifting our fingers off and replacing them, but we're sliding up. And so the first finger and second finger often, they act as a guide in this piece along the strings. And that's a big part of what this study is about. Now, I would encourage you to really respect his right-hand fingerings throughout, of course the left-hand fingerings as well, but there are certain challenges that arise. For example, at the end of bar 3, the third complete bar, you have this chord. It's an A minor chord with an E in the bass. And notice what happens. The first finger and second finger have to jump here right away. So this is advice I gave earlier within the first few lessons of book 1. A helpful thing in an exchange like this, because the left hand has to kind of jump and we want it to be clean, helpful thing is to sort of let the right hand slightly lead. And so the right hand is going to play the 6th, 3rd, and 2nd strings, and then it's going to prepare the 5th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. So we have this kind of motion, and we have to dampen the bass. Right? So let the right hand slightly prepare, and then once the left hand presses, pluck. And this should come off well. that's the end of bar 3 going into bar 4. I'll put that into context. Here is pickup to bar 3. Now, lots of dampening in the basses. We want the notes to replace one another so that the bass is melodic. We don't want to have a situation where there's a lot of overlap. By keeping the bass line melodic and preventing the overlap in the bass, it has the effect of making the upper notes sound as though they are more sustained than they actually are. So, or it draws the ear's attention to the sustain at least. Here's measure 5. Here, watch for the natural, because they were sharp at the end of bar 6. So here's bar 6, we have A sharp and C sharp. Bar 7, they are natural. Dampen, both outer strings. Now he writes con fuoco, with fire. This, by the way, if you've not seen that chord before, that shape, this is what is called a fully diminished 7th chord. In this case, it's really like an A7 flat 9, but it's worthwhile just remembering that shape because it's going to come up a lot in guitar music of all kinds. So this is at the end of bar 10. Here's a pickup to bar 10. So these thirds kind of moving up in bar 13, or pick up to 13. The first finger acting as a guide, the bass notes being dampened. Dampen the bass. Perdendosi, I believe, means something like dying away. And then maybe a more subdued ending. So this particular piece is really about, I think, about that balance of chords, the sound. It's about dampening. And of course, he's using a lot of sliding along the string to really emphasize the point of continuity, both physically and in terms of sound. Something that is going to come up a lot in the Sagreras etudes. So I hope some of that commentary was helpful. I try to keep these videos to about 15 to 20 minutes. And so I think in this video, I'm going to go on as well and look at lesson number 2. So lesson number 2 really reminds me of something by the 19th century Italian composers like Giuliani or Carulli, even Regondi. There's a certain amount of this in Aguado as well. What I'm talking about is, actually in Carcassi too, what I'm talking about is the staggered intervals. In this case, you have octaves. So all of these notes are octaves apart, and then they're played. Sagreras suggests playing alternating on top. So you play P, M, P, I, P, M, P, I. These types of textures are some of the most challenging in terms of synchronizing and coordinating the hands. And they're a really powerful, actually, way to develop better rhythmic integration in your technique. The thing is to play them first very slowly. And he has you start with the third finger. So I'm going to just go walk you through this very slowly. P, M, P, I. And notice these are all free strokes. which is rare in a Sagreras study, to have everything be a free stroke. It helps me to sometimes say the right hand fingering. So P, M, P, I, P. It's hard to say it correctly and play it incorrectly. P, M, P, I, P, 2, and here we go. This is bar 5. And don't be sticky with the left hand, just get off the note and prepare. Point your fingertips to what's coming up. Keeping left hand fingers that are inactive, keeping them close and pointed to their target. Here's after the double bar, this is bar 8. I'm sorry, bar 9. This is bar 9. So I'm trying not to speed. As I get more comfortable, I want to play it faster, so good way to check your tuning as well. Okay, and then here's bar 13. Coming up. Notice the slides coming up. He plays P. Now, if we look at bars, bar 14, 13 and 14, you'll notice that Sagreras moves up on the 4th string with the 3rd finger, and that's going to just naturally, it's going to have the friction sound, which doesn't bother me too much if I'm honest with you. But one way that you can deal with situations like this, if you want to reduce the amount of friction sound, is to play, if I play at the beginning of that little phrase, this is 13, lift the 3rd finger and slide up with the 1st and replace the 3rd finger. That wasn't a good example. Like this, lift before you shift. The timing is tricky though, because you could still get some slide if you contact the string when you're still in motion. So honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but it's good to know how you could reduce it if you like. So that's a little walkthrough. I think the main thing with this is to practice, like I said, in a way where each finger, once it's done what it needs to do, the upcoming finger is orienting itself and is pointing towards where it needs to go. So at the very beginning of the piece, you know, I'm playing the 3rd finger, but my 2nd finger is getting ready to play that B right away. So I'm close. And then after I play the B, I have to sort of pivot, get my 3rd finger ready, and then my 1st finger, and then my 4th, then my 2nd. So it's like a constant, almost like Tai Chi of preparation. And you could analyze both hands in this way. You could play the hands separately, break it down, and then put them back together to integrate the hands. But this study, it is exercisey. This is one that I probably would never think to play at a gig or in public, but it's one of the most valuable lessons in the series. And like I said, this sort of texture, Sagreras probably borrowed this, kind of appropriated this from the 19th century guitarists. Particularly Giuliani was fond of these sorts of broken intervals. And so we'll see a few more of these popping up. But when I was studying guitar, I kind of overlooked these a little bit because they were less fun to play. They're less musical, frankly. But from the mechanics standpoint, they're some of the most valuable. So it's a bit like, you know, taking your vitamins, I guess, taking your medicine. Well, we will move forward in the next video. I'll look at perhaps lessons 3 and 4.